All righty. Good morning, everybody. January 15th. Welcome to another Water Cooler Wednesday. Joined as always by Dwayne Gibbs. Dwayne, what's going on, buddy?
Uh, Cold day here in North
Cold
Carolina.
weather, huh?
Ooh, and we're supposed to. There's no there's no end in sight. The Farmer's Almanac that we everybody goes by up here said that it was going to be a warm, wet winter, and it totally disappointed because it has been cold, in the 20s and 30s, down in the teens at night for such a period of time, and it is cold.
Man, that's interesting because that farmer's market's usually spot on. I mean, it's been around forever. Didn't Ben Franklin start that, right?
An almanac, yeah, Farmer's
Yeah.
Almanac. I
Oh,
mean, everybody lives by it up here,
yeah.
but greatly disappointed this year
Not,
because
not
I
this
mean,
year,
it's
huh?
not bad. I mean, if you like the cold, which I like the
Yeah.
cold, it's fine, but um, it's been exceptionally cold this year, which is
Yeah.
fine.
A little chilly down here. I passed on my walk this morning, but I did my workout. But
Couldn't
put
put the
together,
scarf
I
on
got
and the
back
beanie
from
hat, huh?
what's that?
I said couldn't bear putting the scarf and the beanie hat on, could you?
Yeah, nah, not for a walk around here. It's a little overcast too, but I might get out there later on this afternoon. It'll warm up a little bit. But it did give me time. After getting back, I put together a brand new case study for you. It's been something that I've been working with a pretty new client, and it's a client that saw me through social media. Happens to live in a nearby town. We got together a couple times in person, and because it was new to him. He's done some real estate deals. Some have went well, some have not gone well. And Notes was kind of a new concept that he had been learning about, and looked me up, researched me pretty thoroughly. And we got together in person a couple of times, and like a lot of investors, he wanted to be risk adverse, but still wants to make a healthy return. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, that defines almost everybody that I encounter. Some people are a little bit more aggressive on things, but I'll tell you what, with the inventory that we're seeing today, you don't need to be aggressive to make great returns. In fact, sometimes if you get too aggressive to get that extra 1 or 2 percentage points, there's usually a reason why somebody's selling that note at a 15% yield versus at somewhere between 10 and 12. And it's usually not in your favor.
Yeah,
That
right.
usually means they know already that they've got a tip of the cap that the borrower lost their job, is getting divorced, whatever it is. They're going, I'm going to cut and run on this deal and let somebody else deal with this scenario. That kind of stuff can happen, again, but that's why we do our due diligence. That's why the experience tells you in this business, which is why people hire me, is for that experience to go, I don't know, my radar's kind of going up on something where, why are they selling it for this price? Why are they doing that? It's a perfectly good looking note. And usually it reveals itself months down the road, where it's like, well, there you go. So don't get overly aggressive. There's no need to, in this industry right now with inventory, to get overly aggressive to chase. If you could buy a good note, safe note at 12%, and you're going to chase something down at 15% and take on a little bit more risk, do your numbers and just compare it from 12% yield to 15% yield. And at the end of the year or two, it's not adding up to a whole lot of money. And sometimes you're just taking on more additional risk than you need to. It's just unnecessary, right?
Absolutely. I tell students all the time to, if something does go wrong, make sure you have an exit strategy. And I say
Mhm.
Kevin's like your karate instructor, a black belt karate instructor, to where he always teaches you an exit strategy. Just like a black belt in karate, there's always a counter move, that how you can protect yourself. And with being, and that's what you train your students on. What's the counter move? What's the alternative if something looks good and all of a sudden maybe you didn't look at it right? So how can we back ourselves out of it to where we minimize our risk, and what's that look like? And so you do a really good job with working with the students one-on-one to really break that down and show them. And it gives them a sense of a better understanding of what they're looking at on future deals, and just that knowledge.
Yeah, and in fact, by extension, I I tell people, you've got to have at least three exit strategies for each deal, and that's the way it works because some things are in our control, some things are not in our control. So it all starts with this. It all starts with looking at the numbers, going through a simple exercise, is the way I teach it, of ratios to see if something is worth more of your time and effort. So it's a very quick test. If it's worth more of your time and effort, you take it to that next level of due diligence and go to public records and start to research everything. And that's where you're starting to look for, was it papered up the right way? Did they do it the right way or not? What obstacles might I face if this loan goes bad down the road and I have to foreclose or have to do an eviction in the case of a land contract? Is there something in the paperwork now that I can identify that's going to give me a problem down the road? And that's where I've seen inexperienced, uneducated investors get in trouble. If you buy a deal and the people continue to pay as they should, and there's never a problem, there will never be a problem with that note. The problems always show up when they stop paying. And then all of a sudden you're 3 years into a note and you go to foreclose and they go, there's a problem. Wasn't papered up the right way. This wasn't filed the right way. This is going to force you to go to a judicial process instead of non-judicial process. This is going to force you to have to show proof of paperwork. And now you're trying to go back 2, 3 sales on this thing to try to track down paperwork that you should have tracked down and had filed properly when you bought the note. So papering things up and understanding what needs to be recorded, what doesn't need to be recorded, is an important thing to look at. So I put together this case study this morning on a deal that now has just closed. I mean, this is a very, very fresh off the press deal here that just closed, and it was on a land contract. And a land contract, again, for some of you who've been watching the show, following us on social media, listening to my tips of the day on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and X and everything else, you've heard me talking about land contracts. For those who are new, land contracts are also called contract for deeds. They're called agreements for deeds. They're all the same thing. It is a financial instrument used in seller financing. Banks don't use it, but investors use it all the time because it's written, the land contract is written in the favor of the lender. And therefore, if we can write contracts that are more favorable, then why wouldn't we do that? So it's an interesting hybrid of really a lease option with an equitable interest in a property. And if that confused you, don't worry, we'll cover that in just a minute here as we progress through this. But this was a great looking deal up in Maine. Now the investor, by the way, as I said, is here locally in Florida. So if you're new to this, we don't go up to Maine, we don't look at the property, we don't drive by. We got people that can do that. You can get a BPO and title reports and all those sorts of things. You can have boots on the ground up there. We don't need to waste our time to go up there and look at that. We can still see pictures of the property. So this is pictures from Google Maps, right? Fairly recent one. I cut the date off there, but I think this was a fairly within a year. I think it was less than that, but within a year. So essentially, we're looking at the property pretty much the way it is today. Nice big yard, corner lot over there to the left of the picture. You've got the separate garage and everything, and nice looking place. The neighbors to the right hand side of your picture, all nice. Across the street, some fields and such, but really good looking area. So in our preliminary research, we start to just kind of get what pictures we can on this. They did include what's called a drive-by BPO. BPO stands for broker's price opinion, by the way, which means a local real estate agent went out there, looked at the subject property, they got on MLS, they started to look through all of the current sales in the area, they start as close as they can, as similar as they can, and then they start to go out from that circle as needed based upon sales data. And you can see on this one that the property came in on this BPO at $249,000. Okay, so nice value there. They did put a note right in the middle, which I've written on the right side there. Essentially, property's in good shape, doesn't need any repairs. Everything looked really, really good. Towards the bottom there, they talked about going out, further to look for comparable sales. But in that area, prices went anywhere from $30,000 all the way to $510,000. in that area. So you've got some small homes, some larger homes, and they've indicated on this one 249. Now that's one opinion of value. Before we close on this, can we get another party to go out there and give us another opinion? Sure. Can we get on realtor.com, homes.com, things like that, and find sales and such? Yes. When we're initially doing the due diligence, all we're looking for is, are we in the ballpark here? Okay, maybe it's worth 249, maybe it's worth 200. All right, what are we paying for this thing becomes a part of this. Well, on the next slide, you'll see that out of that $250,000 house, they only owe 15 grand. So how important is it for us to know, is it worth 249 or is it worth 200,000? You know, it just becomes less important because what we're looking at here is the relationship between what we're investing and the value of the property, something that we call investment to value ratio. So risk wise on this one, what I'm saying is if you were to invest 15,000 in this, your investment's backed by something worth over $200,000. Are you safe? You know, and that's what it comes down to. And the other way to look at that, of course, is how motivated is this person to stay and pay and not go into default? I mean, how much they've got, 200,000 some odd dollars in equity. You really think they're going to stop paying on this remaining $15,000 balance and face a foreclosure? No. No, it's not going to happen. And then you look at the monthly payment. It's $325 principal and interest. You add the taxes and insurance in there, you're under $500 a month, $460 a month. Your safety's there,
Yeah.
right? These are the type of notes that we're still seeing today. And that it goes back to our initial point talking about risk. You're not taking unnecessary risk here at all. I mean, it's ridiculously low risk as it is. So now our thought process goes to, all right, we've got low risk. What about our reward, right? And then we start to look at that. Now, this is a short-term loan. There's basically just under 5 years worth of payments, right? 59 payments remaining on this of $325 per month. So it becomes simple math of what kind of return would we get at what price to receive $325 a month for 59 months. Okay. And it's not your simple ROI calculation. Real estate investors, stop doing that and applying that to notes. Stop it. I see people all the time that they look at this as, I'm investing this, I'm getting that back. But you're getting this back over 59 months. You have to take into consideration the time value of money to do a proper calculation. It's not a simple ROI type of formula. That's the wrong way to do it, everybody. You have to get a financial calculator and understand how to use that to calculate the true yield. Otherwise, you're looking at the wrong map. You're looking at the wrong numbers as far as your yield goes on this. So we have the basic static information about the property, and everything would be telling us continue to look at this, right? So one of the things that they provided right away was a payment history. And this is being serviced by a well-known company, Allied. Dwayne knows all the ladies up there that started this company, gosh,
30 years ago.
15 years, right? Over 15 years ago. Really, really nice people, small boutique shop, do a good job. And they've got a payment history. I'm just showing you part of 2024 here in the screenshot. But this payment history goes with the same servicing company all the way back to 2017. And it goes all the way through 2024. And the payment history has always been good. There's a couple every once in a while, a little late fee, something like that comes into play. And you can see that's where these little $10 come into play here. Every once in a while that happens. But you might also notice on this is set up to auto debit on the first month every month. So first of the month, they don't have to do anything. It's auto debited. If the funds aren't there, it'll get kicked back. There's a $10 fee to rerun it, and then they'll rerun it a little bit later. And that's what they're doing. You got a tax distribution in here. We also can tell from this that there's forced place insurance on this property. For some people, by the way, in some areas, insurance is becoming a big deal. I mean, here in Florida, people have seen their insurance rates triple. Um, you can imagine what's going to happen in California with all the fires around the LA area. Insurance companies already bailing out there because they can't maintain. In the Carolinas, I'm sure the same
Same
thing up
thing
there,
up here.
Dwayne.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We hear it on the news all the time, but insurance companies, one, they're either dropping you or the rates are so astronomical, people just can't afford it.
Yeah. And in some cases, forced place insurance, which really just covers hazard, it's a hazard type of insurance policy. That's less expensive to get than somebody getting their own insurance policy. And I'm sure that's the case here. These people have plenty of equity. They just are probably in a situation where they're like, hey, you know what? We'll pay the forced place insurance because it's cheaper than regular insurance that we could get here locally. Fine, no problem. They're paying for it. Okay. And that's what's coming out through these distributions here. So payment history wise, we look at patterns, and the patterns here has been great. They've been good, solid payers. I mean, who cares every once in a while if, oops, the money wasn't in there on the first because it didn't clear my bank and rerun it. Okay, that stuff happens here. So you run the numbers back on this loan, and for those who are listening to this, if you want to see the full video, go to YouTube. I post this on YouTube as well. You can listen to it again on our podcast, Real Estate Without Renters. But what I'm showing for those who can't see this and are just listening to this, I put a financial calculator and I put underneath it what things represent. And again, this is the proper way to calculate return on investment, which we call investors' yield in the note business. You need a financial calculator because we're putting money out in lump sum now and we're getting back payments on a monthly basis. And part of what we're getting is principal, part of what we're getting is interest. That's why you can't use just a regular ROI calculation and think you're doing your numbers the right way. It doesn't come out the same. So in this instance, all I did was enter the information. So the present value of the loan is $15,357. That's the unpaid balance of the loan. The monthly payments are $325 per month that the person is paying out, hence the negative sign. They're paying 9% per year, and that points at that concludes to the number of payments, which is 58.56 payments remaining on this loan. That's it. It's very simple. That's where we are right now. That's a snapshot of the loan as we were looking to purchase this loan. Now we buy these loans at a discount. When we buy at a discount, we pay less and that increases our yield, right? So utilizing the same numbers here, what did my investor offer and what is his return on investment known as annualized yield? Well, what he's buying, once again, is 58.56 payments of $325 per month. He's paying $13,500 for that, which calculates out to a 14.79% annualized return. And again, I know, Dwayne, you and I say this all the time, but I challenge you, where else, anywhere, where else could you put $13,500 and get a 15%, 14.79% return?
Yeah.
You can't. Now, some people
Yeah.
are going to argue, sorry, Dwayne, now, some people are going to argue, well, I could do a stock option or something like that. Yes. So let's identify risk. Where can you
Yeah.
invest $13,500 and essentially have no risk because it's backed by something that is worth 200 grand and make that kind of return? Nowhere.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dwayne. I cut you off there. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and well, hence to your point where you're talking about the value. I mean, if God forbid this went sideways, the value is so much greater. I mean, you're not going to be hurt on this deal if it went sideways.
No, not at all. This is a type of thing where it would never go to foreclosure, because these people would sell the house before they would let it go into foreclosure and just
Absolutely.
pay off the 15 grand. I mean, no big
Right.
deal. But you as a note investor, you're in this for 13,500, and if they paid it off that same day, they'd owe $15,357. So you're still making a profit, whether the people sell the house, whether they pay it off early, or whether they just pay this thing out over the next five years. And that's where I'm talking about exit strategies, because we don't know. They might just one day go, hey, you know what? We've only got 15,000 left on that loan and we're paying 9%. We got the money sitting in a savings account making 3%. Why don't we take that out and pay off the loan in full? You can't control that,
That's
but
right.
you're totally okay with it because you paid $13,500 and getting 15 grand back, you know?
Plus, if it pays
Um,
off early, you're making more than 14%.
exactly. Your yield would even go higher, what if they pay it out over the 5 years? Great. Again, your
Yeah.
money's making
Yeah. Where's the downside?
14.79%.
Yeah.
If it goes into trouble, there'll be late fees, penalties, interest, and everything else. Maybe they stumble, maybe they lose their job, but let's just play devil's advocate. They can't afford the payment for 6 months. Okay, what's going to happen here? You're going to send out some letters, you're going to make some things, and they're accruing another balance that they're going to have to pay, penalties, interest, and everything else. And the principal balance will be frozen, and then they'll have an arrearage account. So even more money, if they don't pay for a period of time, you'll actually end up making more money in the long run, although your cash flow might stop for a little bit. So it's really, on something like this, you can try to poke as many holes in it, but we're buying right. And that's the whole thing. I tell people all the time, you have to have the ability to identify a deal. And when you think through it, you're like, I can't lose on this. My client jumped very quick. I told him, I said, this is going to be gone. I'm like, I know these deals can happen quick sometimes. I know you're new to the business, but I'm just telling you, if you don't move quick on this one, somebody else is going to buy this.
Who got this?
James, here
Oh,
locally.
oh.
Yeah. So here's the issues though, because there's always going to be some little, everything looks great right there, right? But the issue became this. This was an old land contract, and Dwayne is scanning this for the first time, and he already knows where this came from. He knows the story about this whole thing. It's an old Stonecrest deal. It goes back to 2010. The current note owners owned it since 2017. That's where I told you we saw the payment histories from. So these people have been in this property for 2010. So they've been there a long time, and have a lengthy history on this. And back when Stonecrest did these, they did not record these land contracts. First of all, they're not required in all states to be recorded, because they're considered in some states a business transaction, not a real property transaction. And this was not recorded. It's still a legally enforceable document. It's just isn't recorded on public records because either the county says we don't record those, or they say you're not required to record those. So it's been in this state for quite some time. And then it becomes a matter of, if you're buying this now, because this land contract was sold once, and now we're buying it from that party that it was sold to back in 2017. So this is what we're buying, this contractual agreement here. It's not recorded. Okay, that's fine because it's still legally enforceable, but do we need to record it? Should we go back and record these things? Well, in most cases, no. And this took an interesting twist. And I've never seen it before. So if I've never seen it before, chances are nobody listening or watching this has ever seen this happen before. And we started going through public records, right? And I'm looking everything up, and we're doing this Zoom, and James is on one screen and I'm on the other, and I'm showing him all the various documentations. And we come across this affidavit. And the affidavit was filed by the borrowers, okay, by the borrowers in 2020. They filed this affidavit. Whoops. And the affidavit essentially says that, hey, we signed this contract back in 2010. And we didn't realize that this company, Stonecrest, never recorded a copy of the contract. They say it right there in part two. Part one, we signed it, but they never recorded it. And they go on to say, look, we've made our payments. We've continued to make the payments on this, but this contract was sold to somebody else.
Mm.
And then that somebody else sold it to another party here. Okay, so there was a quick flip in the middle of
Wow.
this, by the way. And they're just going, hey, so the current servicer, we're still making our payments, but we want it known that this did exist. It wasn't filed, but we are living up to our contractual agreement. That's what they did. And I thought that was very smart of them for these borrowers to do.
Absolutely.
They were
Absolutely.
uncertain. They were like, hey, man, we're paying this We didn't, they did, part of it was they didn't know that the contract could be sold. It can be sold. It says it right in the contract. But they were also nervous to the fact that, hey, this isn't recorded, and we don't want some company out coming out of the woodwork and saying you haven't been making payments, because we have. That's essentially what they have done here. And this is about a 3-4 pager of a contract, but pretty cool, right? I mean, when I saw that, I was like, that is really smart of them. They were uncertain. They wanted to document it. They wanted to state their claim.
Yeah, that's somebody that had a little bit of common sense to them, you know.
Yeah, they
Something just
probably
didn't
went to an
smell right.
attorney
They,
and yeah,
they didn't know that it couldn't be sold, but yet common sense tells you, I need to have a copy of this, and how come it's not recorded?
right. So, as a part of this affidavit, they had in there Exhibit A. And Exhibit A was that original land contract.
Hmm.
So they took the 4 or 5 page original land contract, used that in their affidavit as Exhibit A. Exhibit B was the legal
Proof.
description. So they had that in there. Now, that made an interesting move, because now that that land contract is recorded, I told my client, James, my student, I said, you're buying this. You're going to get what's called an assignment of land contract. Okay. And that's a snapshot, a part of it right there. And I said, since they filed that affidavit, and in that affidavit, they essentially also recorded that land contract, you need to record your assignment. You need to stake your claim that you now own that land contract. So if it's not recorded, you generally don't have to record. If it is recorded, then you want to record yours. This one had an interesting twist where it wasn't recorded by the originators or the note or the purchasers, but the borrowers put it in an affidavit, which again, I thought was a smart move on their part. And
Yeah.
that simply meant, okay, James, when you close on this, um, make sure that your assignment of land contract is recorded so you can see a logical step. If something were to go wrong, here was the contract, and ultimately it was assigned to you. The servicing company, by the way, never changed. So these borrowers who are on auto debit with Allied are still going to pay Allied. Allied received documentations, including this, that shows it no longer goes to company A, it goes over to James Company. Works that way. Pretty interesting.
I've never seen that.
I've never seen it, never seen it either. I like it. Because, at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with recording these things. And ultimately, it's probably better if you do. So why don't people
Yeah. Safe.
automatically just record it anyway? Well, because sometimes what happens is counties, with the nature of these, when they're assigned, the deed changes hands as well. Because in a case like this, the lender or the note holder is also the owner of record of the property. So they receive a quitclaim deed in addition to the assignment. And in some counties, because they need money, they see that transfer of deed and they go, oh, we have to assess the property, and then we're going to charge you a recording fee based upon what the property is worth. And that's why sometimes people don't record these, is to avoid that fee. Now, if in the state you are required to record it, like Florida, like Michigan, then you have to record it. But if it's not required and you can avoid some fees and everything else, then why would you record it? This one, they
Mhm.
kind of forced the hand to have that assignment recorded. So luckily, it's only a document recording fee, which is no big deal, and there's no additional tax or anything like that he's going to have to pay for that. New stuff all the time, Dwayne.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've never seen anything like that. It's very smart on their part, and just again, due diligence.
Yeah. And it shows you also something about those borrowers. Hey, they're telling you, we're living up to our obligation, man. We're paying this and we're on top of it. We want to make sure that we're being credited for what we're paying here. I mean, to me, that just shows, oh yeah, you're not going to go wrong on this. These people
Yeah.
they want to pay this thing off. They want it documented 100%. You know,
Yeah.
that's yeah, it gave me a real, you know, one of the other things I'm starting to post some of my uh,
That solidifies that being a good note, you know?
yeah, yeah. I'm trying to post some of my words of wisdom in the business, and you know, you've heard me say this a million times, but this is another great illustration: is to master this business, it's numbers and story. You're putting both together. The numbers have to make sense. They made sense in this, and the story makes sense. And the story is telling us, just as Dwayne was saying, great payment history, great equity in the property. They wanted to make reassured that we're getting credit for making payments on this thing. They took that extra step. Those are solid borrowers. There's never going to be a problem, you know, with this particular deal. The numbers make sense. The story makes sense. They come together, and you come to a logical conclusion of this is a good note. We're not going to have a problem with it at all. So well done. And you know, when you have, if you were brand new, you know, think about this. How quickly would you have been able to move on that and understand that, and even get to the depth to understanding what that affidavit was all about? And chances are, if you're new and you're basing your whole action on, you know, a book and tape course or a 3-day training that you attended, and you're going to take that knowledge and apply it, that's new. That's stuff that you would not have been able to probably interpret. Let's say that you did have some knowledge on a deal. If you didn't move quick enough on this one, you would have lost it. And then that's where the value of experience comes into play. You know, understanding that no problem, James. I understand what this is. I see what it's all about. Get it under contract. All you'll have to do is this, move on this thing. Otherwise, it's gone. And that is going to separate, you know, whether you think that's fair in the industry or not. That's the way it works everywhere, everybody. It works the same way in real estate, works the same way in every other investment. The people who understand it, the people who have knowledge of it, the people who have the expertise are going to be able to move quicker than you. And that's why you either learn through your own experience at your own pace, or you utilize the experience of other people by investing in yourself and getting mentorship and getting coaching.
Yeah, somebody that, you know, alluding to the fact of what you were saying about if they were new into this business and they took a 3-day course or they bought some books and tapes, that experience right there is not going to educate somebody, you know, and so they would probably have passed on it and said, that doesn't look right, or they never talked about it. So there must be something behind the scene that people don't know that's going to go wrong. And so again, like you just mentioned, losing out on a good deal.
Yeah. That affidavit, I'm sure somebody new could have looked at that and interpret that like, uh-oh, there's a problem here. Because look, they're saying that they've been paying and this note's been sold and it wasn't recorded and oh boy, there's a problem. You know, I could
Yeah.
easily see somebody you know, looking at that the opposite way of which I did, which was the proper way to look at it. So cool lesson in that one, good deal. And again, people are going, if you're looking for solid investments and you're worried about the real estate market and private lending or whatever it is that you're doing, or the stock market, that deal just closed. I mean, so I'm not showing you stuff that, oh yeah, 2 years ago, but this is a cool story. This just closed. These are the type of deals that we're looking at. I've got probably 3 or 4 more deals that will close by the end of this week, and I'll be putting together case studies on those also. And just it's just a good time. And 2025, I think it's going to be strong. I did a whole video on that, which I posted on YouTube, by the way. So if you go to YouTube and look at my YouTube channel, which is just under my name, Kevin Shortell, you'll see my thoughts on 2025 in the business on there as well. And there's a link on there that can get you to have a conversation with Dwayne if you want to talk about if this is right for you and what we can do to help you. There's links on there for that, and that's what we do every day. So that's all I got for today, Dwayne.
Talk about our event coming up, noteworthy event that we're going to be at personally out in Scottsdale.
Oh, yes, indeed. We have what's called Noteworthy. Noteworthy has been around since the very
Long time.
beginning of this industry. It was one of the first industry conventions and industry newsletter that came about. I write 2 articles every month for the newsletter, which goes on to this day, noteworthyusa.com. But there is a investor summit coming up, and it's going to be out in Scottsdale, Phoenix area at the Orange Tree Golf Resort. And it's going to be a collection of experienced, inexperienced investors. We're bringing in speakers. I'll be doing 2 presentations myself, a state of the industry, and also a training session out there. We've got IRA experts, all sorts of things, attorneys. And the event is $395 to attend. And if you use a code, which is my name, Kevin100, Kevin100, you'll get $100 off of that training event. And you'll go to noteworthyusa.com, Noteworthy Investor Summit 2025. I'll put the link up. I don't know if I can do that in Facebook or not, but I'll have that for sure on YouTube, or send us an email and I'll send that to you as well. You can just email me, Kevin@kevinshortel.com. Should be able to see the spelling of my name there, SHORTLE, and I'll be glad to send you the link and the discount of $100, and you can learn all about it. I think it's going to be a good event.
Good event, yeah. Supposed to talking with Ben. Looks like sizable event this year.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much for watching and listening, and look forward to putting on another one for you next Wednesday.